Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. We got a lot to cover. After a record-breaking State of the Union last night, President Trump gave his speech to a very enthusiastic crowd of Republicans. The Democrats stayed in their seats most of the night. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We're going to hit some of the highlights, talk about some of the guests who were seen in the balcony, including our favorite service dog, Sadie. Remember that story from yesterday? Team USA's Olympic gold medal winning men's hockey team arrived at the White House for their meeting with President Trump yesterday afternoon as he was preparing for his State of the Union address last night. They later were greeted with a thunderous round of applause as the president introduced them in the joint session of Congress as well. A North Carolina mom of three who vanished more than 2 decades ago ditched her family because of, quote, ongoing domestic issues, she told law enforcement after finally being tracked down 24 years later.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
President Donald Trump's State of the Union broke a record last night. The speech ran for 1 hour, 47 minutes, nearly 20 minutes longer than former President Bill Clinton's previous record-setting address in 2000.
My fellow Americans, our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before. Less than 5 months from now, our country will celebrate an epic milestone in American history, the 250th anniversary of our glorious American independence. This July 4th, we will mark 2.5 centuries of liberty and triumph, progress and freedom in the most incredible and exceptional nation ever to exist on the face of the earth. And you've seen nothing yet. We're going to do better and better and better. This is the golden age of America.
And that was sort of the theme throughout the evening, the golden age of America, and celebrating our 250 years. Just minutes into his State of the Union, President Trump gave a moment nearly everyone in the House chamber could get behind. From the gallery, the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team entered to a standing ovation from Congress. The president announced that the goalie of the gold medal winning team would receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the chants of USA just broke out throughout the chamber. Throughout the night, the president built on the moment, reflecting on America's accomplishments ahead of its 250th birthday. He remained largely disciplined and relaxed. You could tell he was having fun as he drew parallels from the first year of his second term to former President Joe Biden's administration. Here's just an excerpt.
12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. It is indeed a turnaround for the ages.
And just another example of the applause that he would often get. You know, I'd love to see a breakdown of how many times people stood and applauded the president. As I said a minute ago, he broke a record for the longest at 1 hour, 47 minutes. I would imagine he probably broke the record for standing ovations as well. And not even screaming Democrats could pull Trump from his preparedness, as he largely stuck to his teleprompter to deliver the message, which is unusual for the president, as you know. Occasionally, he would veer from his remarks to note that Democrats had not stood and cheered when he called out to, for example, outlaw sex change surgeries for minors, or for American citizens to be prioritized over illegal aliens. Sometimes that it would have been appropriate for Democrats to applaud. They did not. And at one point, after a very long applause from everybody but the Democrats as they sat there and really just looked stupid looking around the room because they knew the cameras were on them. And they would just sit there and stare off into space because they were uncomfortable whether they wanted to admit it or not. But at one point, the president just looked at them. He pointed at them. He said, "These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy." And the Republicans just started laughing. Now, another unifying moment came when the president turned to Erica Kirk, the widow of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, of course, who was brutally murdered last September, a friend of the Trump family. The president spoke about faith and the religious revival that he believes is taking over the nation, especially following the murder of Charlie Kirk, whom he deemed a martyr. The whole chamber was on its feet as the president condemned political violence. And at this point, finally, the Democrats stood up. When he condemned political violence from everybody, the Democrats did applaud that. He heavily touted the economy, talked about his administration's work to bring the country back from Bidenomics. After months of big headlines and criticism for putting an emphasis on foreign policy, the president largely focused his speech on domestic policy and for his plans for the countries, for our future, and where we're headed for the rest of his term. The president spoke about energy independence and how the price of fuel has come down in his first year back in office.
Gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon in some states under my predecessor, it was quite honestly a disaster, is now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places $1.99 a gallon. And when I visited the great state of Iowa just a few weeks ago, I even saw $1.85 a gallon for gasoline.
And at one point, the president called on Congress to make the ban on Wall Street investment firms buying single-family homes permanent, and demanded that Democrats end the partial government shutdown and restore funding to the Department of Homeland Security, at which point, of course, he got some feedback from the Democrats. He said from 1776 to today, every generation of Americans has stepped forward to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the next. Now it is our turn. He got applause, of course, from the Republicans in the room then. Again, throughout the address, the president used the stories of everyday Americans to display how his policies are effective while drawing contrast to Democrats. And he did a great job. I'm going to have to say it's probably one of the best speeches I've seen Donald Trump give. He shouted out one of his special guests, Sage Blair, who was in attendance with her mother, Michelle Blair. When Sage Blair was 14 years old, the president explained how her school teachers tried to secretly convince her that she was a male. The state eventually decided to take the young girl away from her parents because they weren't affirming her new chosen gender. Just one of those crazy, crazy stories. Another one, West Virginia National Guard member Andrew Wolf, who was critically injured after an Afghan national shot him while on patrol in the nation's capital. He was in attendance and received the Purple Heart during the address. The president also highlighted Judge Buddy Taggart, a World War II veteran who earned a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. Taggart will turn 100 years old July the 4th of this year. Now, is that not amazing? He'll celebrate his 100th birthday on America's 250th birthday. How touching, how just amazing to see this man. And he did not look like he was 100. And again, the president kept patriotism at the center of his address. He concluded by awarding 2 veterans with the Medal of Honor, the first time a president has done so during a State of the Union address, another record. He broke multiple records last night. Chief Warrant Officer Eric Slover, a U.S. Army helicopter pilot who was wounded during the administration's raid on Venezuela, received the Medal of Honor alongside the 100-year-old Captain Royce Williams, a veteran of the Korean War. The president said, when the world needs courage, daring, vision, and inspiration, it is still turning to America. And when God needs a nation to work his miracles, he knows exactly who to ask. And he mentioned faith a number of times. The president was very clear that he feels like that the country is moving back to God like we have not seen in recent history. And it was very, very popular. Again, loud applause. Even some of the Democrats, I think, applauded when he talked about the country turning back to our faith. Now, the Democrats were critical, yes. But overall, I got to say, it was probably one of the most positive State of the Union speeches I've ever heard. And I think I've probably seen most every one since maybe even Nixon in the late 60s, when I really became interested in politics. But it was a great night. It was a celebration of country. It was a celebration of our faith in God. It was a celebration of some heroes, both the young men on the hockey team to the veterans who were there, who had served their country fighting in war. It was a great night. It was a fun night to be an American. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get your 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. I told you all the good stuff about last night, and it was a very patriotic, uplifting evening, as you saw the president recognize a lot of heroes. And that was what was different about last night's speech. It wasn't just the president talking about the accomplishments of his administration, but it was also about recognizing Americans who are making a difference, recognizing Americans who have fought for our country. I mean, again, 100-year-old or soon to be 100 years old. His birthday will be on July the 4th, when we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country, a war hero. That was the special moments of some of these special stories that the president was telling. But the Democrats really made asses of themselves. Am I allowed to say that? Can I say that? Maybe not. I don't know. They were the horse's rear end. They really did. Not standing at times when the president was talking about things like voter ID laws, when he's talking about how we needed to have our elections to be safe so that there would not be any cheating. Of course, he turned it on them when they sat there like bumps on the log, not responding when he said that we needed to have safe and secure elections. He said, you know why they don't? You know why they're not standing? Because they are cheaters. They want to cheat. The only reason they are not supporting voter ID laws is because they want to cheat. And that's a true statement. They didn't respond when he talked about border security. In fact, that's when a couple of the squad yelled back at him. I mean, it was just crazy. Al Green. Look, I don't know that Al Green has ever sat through a recent State of the Union, because he always gets thrown out. Well, he got escorted out pretty early in the speech last night after holding up his sign that said, "Blacks are not apes." He was escorted out very quickly. But I guess if the Democrats, if you want to say the stars of the Democrats, the biggest rear ends last night were Democrat Representatives Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and Rashida Tlaib of Michigan. They unintelligibly shouted at President Trump last night after he brought up illegal immigration. You couldn't tell what they were saying, but they were very vocal about it. And I'm sure the people around them could hear him. The president asked members of Congress to stand if they agreed that the U.S. has a duty to protect American citizens over foreign nationals. That should be an easy question. There shouldn't be anything controversial about that. While the president admonished lawmakers who did not stand, which was pretty much the entire Democrat side of the room, Omar and Tlaib angrily shouted over him, or tried to anyway. He just kept on going. Now, don't you remember, who was it? Joe Wilson? Years ago, the congressman from the Midlands of South Carolina shouted at, was it Obama? And they were about to censure him, even his own party. And you got these two idiots standing there yelling back at him. And again, I don't know what they said. Eventually, we'll probably learn. Somebody's probably already analyzed it and they could read their lips. I don't know. Omar, of course, has condemned the Trump administration for its crackdown on fraud in Minnesota. And he called them out. He talked about the Somalis in the speech. And boy, you could tell she did not like that. She says that there's no justification for the federal response, even though we know that there's been over $9 billion stolen in social service programs. And this idiot is still defending them? I mean, that's the type of person she is. By the way, speaking of Ilhan Omar, there's a funny meme circulating on social media about Omar saying that she hasn't been that mad since her brother forgot their wedding anniversary. I did see one report where at one point during their outburst that Rashida Tlaib shouted, "Alex wasn't a criminal." I would imagine referencing Alex Preddy, the U.S. citizen shot and killed by federal agents during the chaotic encounter in Minneapolis. He's the one who confronted the agents, of course. And they're still, they still want to push the narrative that these were two innocent American citizens who were killed by federal agents. They don't want to talk about the fact that they confronted federal agents. They don't want to talk about the fact that, no, they weren't just peacefully protesting. Omar shouted, "You're a liar," at one point, while sources in the gallery were unsure whether she also called the president a sycophant. Again, two women who should not be serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. Do you agree? Do you agree that these two women, if they hate our country that badly, that they should not be allowed to sit in an esteemed body like the U.S. House of Representatives? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. By the way, when you go to MyPillow.com, don't forget to use promo code Joey. You can get the classic MyPillows regularly $49.98. They're just $17.98 right now when you use promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for just $39.98. Again, you got to use my name. Use promo code Joey. But just go to MyPillow.com right now, and you're going to, if you place your order, you can get your entire order shipped absolutely free. But I'd love for you to leave me a message or text me and email me. Am I off base here when I say that people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar really should not be serving in the U.S. Congress? Now, in her Democrat response to the president's speech, Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger accused the administration of sending poorly trained federal immigration agents into U.S. cities to make warrantless arrests, detain mothers and children, and operate mask from accountability. They just can't get past the immigration issue, can they? They want to make the whole focus on ICE. They're so angry because President Trump is following through on his campaign promise. He promised in 2024, if the American people elected him president again, that he was going to close the border. He has. That he was going to round up these people who are in our country illegally, breaking our laws. He was going to round them up and deport them. That's what he's doing. That's exactly what he's doing, and they're upset about it. They're upset because for once, a president is doing what he promised to people. Ms. Spanberger, who began her career as a federal agent working money laundering and narcotic cases, said that she worked alongside local and state police to uphold the law and argued that effective law enforcement depends on trust, duty, and commitment to the community. She's right to a degree. The American people, though, have to trust law enforcement. The American people have to believe that law enforcement has that commitment to keep their community safe. And I think the American people agree that ICE is doing their job by rounding up the worst of the worst and getting them out of our country. It was red, white, and blue pride on full display in Washington yesterday as Team USA's Olympic gold medal winning men's soccer team arrived at the White House to meet President Donald Trump just days after delivering a historic win on the world stage. The Americans stunned Canada 2-1 in overtime at the 2026 Winter Olympics. We watched it. It was just like it was back in 1980, the Miracle on Ice. Peg and I just watched the movie Miracle on Ice just a couple of weeks ago, just prior to the Winter Olympics. Off the stick of New Jersey Devils star Jack Hughes, he sealed the country's first men's Olympic hockey gold since that legendary Miracle on Ice. And yes, it came against Canada. It was a replay. It's kind of like we watched the movie. We knew the ending. The most decorated Olympic hockey nation in history with 9 gold medals, and we beat them. That alone made it special. Add in the backdrop of the rising U.S.-Canada tensions earlier this year, including trade disputes, and the victory carried even more emotional weight for the American fans. Now, President Trump personally called the team Sunday night, congratulating the players. This was during their hockey room celebration. And by the way, FBI Director Patel, he's taking some heat because he celebrated in the locker room with them. Why the left thinks that's a bad idea, I don't know. That's a different story, different day. But the White House, of course, then made the formal invitation to come join the president to celebrate on the afternoon prior to his State of the Union address. Trump joked that if he invited only the men's team, he'd have to invite the women's team too. Otherwise, he said, I probably would be impeached. The players kind of laughed. The clip went viral, especially after the women declined the invitation. Some critics said the comment made light of the women's gold medal victory, which also came against Canada. The U.S. women's team has since declined the White House invitation. We don't know why, just they cited scheduling conflicts. I think we know there's probably a hidden agenda there somewhere. We won't get into that today either. 2 key players, Dylan Larkin and Zach Werenski, appeared on Fox and Friends yesterday morning, spoke candidly about what representing America means to them. These young men just make you proud to be an American. They're proud to be an American. Larkin talked about his time in the U.S. National Team Development Program, how wearing that jersey from a young age instilled pride and responsibility. He told Fox, every time I get the chance to represent the United States of America, I'm all in. I could go on all day about how great our country is. These are the type of young people we need representing us, not the ones who are over there kind of being vague about their country, acting as if they're somewhat ashamed of their country and of their president. Werenski echoed that sentiment, saying traveling overseas for tournaments only deepened his appreciation for home. He said, you get reminded of how great the United States is when you get back here. It's the best country in the world. He also made a point to credit members of the military and first responders, saying their service makes it possible for athletes to live out their dream. Again, these young men are exactly what Olympic gold champions look like and act like. The team's visit again yesterday afternoon, just ahead of the President's State of the Union last night, too. We saw a lot of special guests in the balcony last night during the speech. One of those was Erica Kirk, widow, of course, of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. She was President Donald Trump's guest last night. Yesterday afternoon, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that Mrs. Kirk would be in attendance, saying that she would be, quote, one of President Trump's special guests. She did this in a post on X that included the Daily Wire article that first reported the announcement. During his speech, the president affirmed that America is one nation under God And he called on Congress to firmly reject political violence against our fellow citizens. And, of course, he's thinking about himself, who has had multiple attempts on his life, but he's thinking about his friend Charlie Kirk, whom a gunman was successful in taking that young 31-year-old's life way, way too soon. The Trump administration officials have rallied around Erica Kirk, as you know, after Charlie's assassination. His casket was flown from Utah to his home state of Arizona aboard Air Force Two, and Vice President J.D. Vance escorted the casket as it was carried onto the plane. Later, the Second Lady Vance was seen holding Erica's hand as they departed Air Force Two. It was just a time of family. And the Trump administration made it very clear that Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk were part of the Trump family. Members of the Trump administration, including the president and vice president, took part in the memorial service for Charlie back in September as well. Little more than a month after his assassination, Charlie Kirk was posthumously awarded the Medal of Freedom on what would have been his 32nd birthday. Erica Kirk accepted the medal from President Trump on behalf of her late husband. She said that in awarding Charlie with the nation's highest civilian honor, the president had given her late husband the best birthday gift he would have ever been able to receive. And again, Erica Kirk, a guest of the president in the U.S. Capitol last night. Did you also see Sadie? Sadie's become my new best friend. Are you familiar with the story of Sadie? I talked about it yesterday. She's the service dog for Florida Congressman Randy Fine's dad, and has been in the headlines this past week when the congressman pushed back on Muslims who suggested that dogs were not clean and should not be inside of our homes. Now, you know how I feel about dogs. Jesse and Simon are part of our family. Poor little Jesse had eye surgery last week. He's walking around with one of those e-collars on, and it's probably a lot worse on Peg and me than it is him. He seems to be feeling good, but we're just praying for total healing, that he'll have eyesight in that eye. But we love our dogs. So it's no surprise when Congressman Fine took offense when this Muslim suggested that we shouldn't have dogs in our homes. There's a video that's gone viral somewhere in New York of a Muslim man making the suggestion to a woman who's out walking her dog to keep the dog away from him. And he actually goes over, tells her to take it away. She stands up to him. But when they suggested to the congressman, or the congressman found out about this, he pushed back. He suggested that if we have to choose between Muslims being here and dogs being here, he's going to take the dogs. And now he's gotten some pushback within from the left, suggesting that he'd rather have a dog than a Muslim. So he invited, not to back down, he invited his dad to come to the State of the Union last night and bring his service dog, Sadie. If you missed the whole story, check it out. I did a segment on it yesterday. You can find it on my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search for Joey Hudson, and watch it. I'd love for you to see it. And while you're there, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to build a audience, a community on YouTube, and I want you to be part of it. So while you're there, subscribe to my channel. Watch the story about Sadie, and he has Congressman Fine has introduced legislation that would protect dogs from Sharia law. That's a whole other story. Anyway, also, U.S. Senator Tim Scott had a special upstate guest at the speech last night. Greenville police officer Gio Alberto. Now, this young man was shot January the 11th in what police called a targeted attack against law enforcement. You may have heard the story if you live in the upstate of South Carolina. After learning of the attack, Senator Scott reached out, invited Alberto to attend to thank him for putting himself in harm's way, according to the senator's office. The visit was coordinated with the department. Senator Scott at the time told media, here's a person who's gone through a horrific situation, unfortunate, devastating, and yet he was smiling and enthusiastic, and frankly, he was motivating me, the senator said. Alberto's wife was also attended. According to the Greenville Police, Alberto was shot at 1:49 a.m. January 11th outside the Greenville County Law Enforcement Center. The center, of course, downtown Greenville, is the headquarters of the Greenville County Sheriff's Office and the location of the county jail, as well as some other court facilities. The officer, who has been with the police department for 3.5 years, was seated in his patrol vehicle when he was shot multiple times. Authorities said the gunman used incendiary ammunition. After the shooting, the gunman fled in a vehicle. Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis described it as an ambush-style attack. A suspect, identified as 42-year-old David William Lane, was located hours later. He died at 3 a.m. January 11th after a brief pursuit. The coroner's office ruled the death a suicide. But this young man was exactly where he needed to be. We need to be recognizing people like this hero, like Officer Alberto. And kudos to Senator Scott for taking him to Washington, for bringing him up there to hear the president's speech, but more importantly, to recognize him for the hero that he is in our community here in upstate South Carolina. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. This next story on the surface sounds like one of those miracle headlines. A missing mom, gone for more than 2 decades, found alive. But when you look a little closer, this isn't just a feel-good reunion story. It's complicated, it's emotional, and it raises some hard questions about family, about pain, and the choices people make when life feels just unbearable. So here's the story. Back in December of 2001, a 38-year-old mother of 3 from Eden, North Carolina, Michelle Lynn Hundley Smith, walked out of her home. Now, she told her family she was going to Christmas shop, supposedly heading to a Kmart across the Virginia line inside of Virginia. Then she never came back home. Think about that. Think about the timing. December, Christmas, 3 kids at home. The kind of season that's supposed to be filled with lights and laughter, family dinners, and all the fun stuff that we enjoy as a family around Christmas. Instead, those children were left with a lot of questions. Law enforcement at the time treated it as a serious missing persons case. There were flyers distributed. There were searches. Agencies from North Carolina and Virginia got involved. Even the FBI spent time and resources chasing leads, trying to find out what happened to this young mother. The original missing person flyer described her as endangered. It said she would not leave her children by choice. That's what investigators believed at the time. Now, that's what the community believed as well. That's what the family believed. And for more than 20 years, that's what her children believed. Now, fast forward. Just this past week, authorities say they received a tip. Officers tracked it down, and there she was, alive and well, somewhere in North Carolina. We don't know where because her location has not been disclosed publicly. After more than 2 decades, Rockingham County Sheriff Sam Page told People magazine that there were no allegations of foul play, no evidence of abduction, no crime that forced her disappearance. Instead, according to the sheriff, Michelle Smith told investigators she'd left because of ongoing domestic issues. She was feeling overwhelmed, so she just left her 3 children. Now, we don't know the specifics. The sheriff said that there were no recorded domestic incidents in the household at that time. But let's be honest for a moment. Not every domestic struggle shows up in a police report, does it? Some pain stays behind closed doors. We never know about it. Some turmoil never gets documented. And sometimes people feel trapped in ways that don't produce flashing lights or a 911 call. Still, there's another side to this story. 3 children, 3 young children, children who grew up without their mother. Children who likely wondered every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation, what happened to Mom? Was she hurt? Is she still alive? Did she choose to leave us? For 20 plus years, that question has hung over them, and now they have an answer. But answers don't always automatically bring that peace. One of her daughters posted a statement on Facebook that was incredibly raw, honest, and human. She said the last couple of days had been a whirlwind of emotions. And then she laid it all out. She said, and I'm quoting, "I'm ecstatic, I'm angry, I'm brokenhearted, I am all over the map." That right there, that's real. That's what complicated love sounds like. She even asked herself the question out loud, will I have a relationship with my mom again? And she admitted she just doesn't know right now. Her first reaction was, yes, of course, that's my mom. But then she thinks about the hurt. She thinks about 20 years of hurt. And yet, in the same breath, she says her mother is only human, just like all of us. And she remembers the smiles, the love, the bond that she once had with her mom. And if you're listening to this right now, maybe you experienced something similar in your own life. Maybe not a disappearance like this, but estrangement, broken relationships, family fractures that never fully healed. Life has a way of being messy, doesn't it? And families can be very messy. This story isn't clean. It doesn't fit into a neat little box. On one hand, you can understand someone feeling overwhelmed by domestic turmoil. If someone truly believes leaving is the only way to survive emotionally or mentally, that's pretty serious. On the other hand, though, walking away from your children for 20 years, that has to leave some scars, some very deep scars. And here's another layer that's worth mentioning. Law enforcement and federal agencies spent countless hours investigating this disappearance. Taxpayer resources were used. Community volunteers likely searched woods and fields like we've seen over these past weeks with the Nancy Guthrie case out in Arizona. For years, this case sat in files as an unresolved mystery. And now we learn she chose to leave. She chose to walk out of that house, to pretend to go shopping, and leave those 3 children. Now, doesn't mean that the domestic issues weren't real. Doesn't mean her pain wasn't real. But it does mean a lot of people spent a lot of time searching for someone who had made a personal decision to just start over. There's no villain here in the traditional sense, I guess. There's not a kidnapper. There's no violent crime, no courtroom drama, just human beings. Flawed human beings, hurting human beings, trying to survive in their own way. And now, 24 years later, those worlds collide again. Imagine being one of those children. You built a life. You formed your identity around the absence of your mom. Maybe you've grieved her as if she were gone forever. And then suddenly you find out she's alive. She's here, somewhere in North Carolina, alive and well. Do you run to her? Do you protect yourself? Do you ask for questions? Do you even want them? That daughter's statement struck me because she didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't present a Hallmark movie reunion. She admitted the tension between love and pain, and that's mature for a young lady. That's honesty. And maybe, just maybe, that's the first step towards healing, whatever that ends up looking like for this family, if there is total healing at any point. It also reminds us of something broader. We never fully know what's happening inside someone else's home, do we? We see snapshots, smiles at church, photos at school events, Christmas cards, but behind closed doors, struggles can brew quietly. Again, we don't know the details here. We shouldn't speculate beyond what's been reported, but we can acknowledge that domestic strain, whether emotional, financial, relational, can push people to desperate decisions. And still, you got to remember responsibility for your family matters. Choices matter. When children are involved, especially, the weight of those choices multiplies. What happens next in this story is private. We don't know. We may never know. It belongs to that family. Will there be a reunion? Will there be therapy sessions, long conversations, silence? We don't know. What we do know is this. The mystery that haunted these 3 children in that community for more than 2 decades has been replaced with a very different type of challenge. Now they're not asking, is she alive? They're asking, what do we do with this? And sometimes closure isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a new complicated chapter. If there's anything that we can take from this, maybe it's this. Grace and accountability aren't always opposites. You can acknowledge someone's humanity while also recognizing the pain their decisions cause you or others or an entire family and community. You can feel joy. You can feel anger at the same time. You can be grateful someone is alive and still wrestle with the hurt of their absence. That daughter said it best. Her mom is human, just like all of us. And that might be the most uncomfortable truth in this whole story. Because being human means we are capable of love that lasts decades and choices that echo just as long. We'll keep an eye on this story as it develops. For now, one thing is certain. After 24 years of silence, a family is having conversations they never thought they would have. And sometimes the hardest part isn't the disappearance. I'd love to get your feedback. If you had a relative that you thought, maybe just assumed was dead, been gone for 24 years, and suddenly they appear and you find out that they did this in their own will, that they made a choice to leave you behind, would you welcome them back? Would you want a relationship with them? Love to get your comments. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can also leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.